So you have the floor. Thank you very much, Roman. Thank you very much for RootedCON for taking us into account and inviting us to come over here. So our presentation is part of a project we came about with, the two of us last year, because we got together, we said we both like traveling, and I said, well, why don't we just travel the Hacktiago path? So my name is Marugán. I'm known as Radio Hacking. I am a security consultant at Actions company. And as Roman said, I like radio a lot. I am passionate for radio, for signal intelligence. And, well, I've been Jose Manuel just twisted my arm and, well, to come over here and to give you this presentation about our path. My name is J.M Vera D. I'm a journalist. I've been writing on cybersecurity for 8 years now. I came to this world thanks to Roman. I work with José de la Peña and Luis Fernandez. They've been writing about cybersecurity for 30 years. So if you want to be aware of cybersecurity, please read our magazine, SIC magazine. And I have the privilege to be here with David today. And I twisted his arm to be with me today here. And then we said, well, where do we want to travel to? And we started dreaming, and they said, what happened if we were to find the wallet of Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin? And we don't know who he is, and if we were to find the key to access to that wallet, we would become the 14th richest people in the world. And then he said, well, what can we do to find the key to open that wallet? If we were to find 52 million euros, do you like this? Oh, yes, I love it. It would be wonderful to have 52 million euros just to operate from my transmitter. No, I prefer to travel alone and to go to the space. Well, we could also stay over in the hotel at 400 meters altitude, 900 euros per night. Now, I prefer to sleep underwater. And then also we could climb up the Everest mountain, but we don't like that because it is crowded. And then, well, we could go to Ukraine, and then we could just travel in the Meca, and it is not very expensive. Now, Titanic, 120,000 euros, okay? This is the last year to go down to see it, or to go to the deepest cave in the world, 2,000 meters underground. We see, well, it's getting deeper and deeper every year. And we said, well, this is good for ordinary people, but we are not ordinary people. We like hackers. And then we said, now, who do we want to mimic? And we found this man, first hacker in history, Neville Maskelyne. He did something very ugly to Marconi. In 1904, Marconi was about to be in a bay in a boat 100 kilometers away from the coast, and he was going to try his wireless transmission, and he was about to do that for people in London. And then second in command was Fleming, and he was supposed to get a message. So this man did a man in the middle. He stayed in the middle, and he passed on the message in Morse and said something like rats, rats, rats. And he was lucky because the other didn't know anything about Morse language, but Fleming, who knew Morse, and says he is not Marconi. There was someone in the middle. So there was a debate on times, and he was considered to be a scientific criminal. And he was accused of being a cyber criminal. Apparently, the telegraphic company, had paid for the installation of this wireless transmission. He is considered to be the first hacker in history. So there were magicians, him and his family, and they also did a smart operation by creating, well, through magic tricks. So it is good for black hat hacker, so scientific rascal. And I also like René Carmil. I don't know whether you heard of him. He is a hacker, and he risked his life, and he saved thousands of Jews during the Second World War. He was a French civil servant. When France was occupied, he was in charge of the systems managing databases of population. One of the things that Germany did after the 30s was to have an accurate register of the population through IBM machines with punched cards, including lots of data from the population, demographic data. And René Carmil, when the Germans came in and asked him to implement the IBM system to keep a register in France, he said, well, the system would not suit your needs. And then he, for 3 years in a row, he succeeded in not letting Germans keeping up a register of the people in France. He manipulated the cards. He was caught, and he was sent to Dachau concentration camp, where he died. So he was one of the first hackers. He manipulated a machine, and he managed to save thousands of Jews. So in the Netherlands, the Germans killed 75% of the Jewish population, and in France they only killed 1 out of 4, and he was responsible, or he is to thank for that. And well, tomorrow is the International Women's Day. Hedy Lamarr, she is the first hacker. Well, some say that she's discovered Wi-Fi. I don't think so, but she created a hopping frequency to avoid countermeasures for torpedoes. Apart from being one of the most beautiful cinema stars, she was a self-taught engineer, and after a very compulsive life, she was married 8 times. She was obliged to marry a Nazi, and she had Jew ancestors. I don't know whether this German person knew that or not, or she was mistreated, and she continued studying engineering, and together with a musician, they emulated hopping frequency so that the Nazis could not interfere in the torpedoes of the Allies. And then we said, we very much like these 3 hackers. Let us see if we find out where they come from and who accompanied them in the travel to cybersecurity up until the day of today, up until RootedCon. And because 2 of us are highly spiritual people, and I said, why don't we travel St. James pathway? Because we like hackers, now we have the Hacktiago way. It is collaborative, and it is like blockchain. It starts nowhere, finishes nowhere, and then we decided to travel that path. And because we had some bitcoins, we traveled to London, Moscow, Ukraine, Geneva, Washington. We sent our reporters over there. We did not travel to every single place on the map. And Henry Miller said that our destination is never a place, but a way of seeing things. And this is what we want to share with you. That's what we want to learn from our Hacktiago way. And what is the first place? The first place is a place where we have the cross of mathematics, cryptography, IT, cybersecurity, technology, talent, passion, as well as love. This is our Roncesvalles hacker. We have named it Bletchley Park, 60 kilometers away from London. Look, this is a Victorian manor from 19th century. Yes, there is a tennis court, beautiful facilities, has a lake. This was the most secret place of the Allies in the Second World War. Up to 10,000 people used to work there. And the most interesting of it is that no one in the village knew what those people were doing there. People in the village thought that British official and some noblemen went there with their women hunting on the weekends. Yet this country house from the 19th century changed the history of the World War. There, a group of mathematicians, cryptographers, and women managed to decipher real-time the messages that were passed on by the Nazi army. So for that, they brought together the 20 best minds in the UK, and nowadays it is a paradise for hackers. What can we see in Bristol Park? Well, we can see what Alan Turing went through. He is considered to be one of the fathers of modern IT and one of the precursors of artificial intelligence. These are the buildings where Turing and the rest of the mathematicians lived. And the second photograph stands for the most spectacular museum for Enigma machines. They have these machines from Spain, from Germany, from Italy. They have those that were used by the Japanese, original drawings, original parts and pieces. Everything is wonderful, and everything in Bristol is oriented or focusing on cryptography. You may notice that the logotype for the toilets, it's also in cryptograms. So we in these Victorian home, they had 20 barracks. They kept 10,000 people there. So the big photograph is the office of Alan Turing. You may notice, well, Alan Turing had some strange capabilities. Well, he just didn't want people to use his mark, and he used to tie it to the radiator. And then we see this bump, which is the machine that Turing designed for that. The messages that they got and transcribed through Enigma were translated or transcribed in real time. That machine, the same as everything around, was destroyed. Fortunately, all that was reconstructed, as we can see on the top photograph. And then here we see which is how this rotor system operates. Many people feel that this is one of the first modern computers in history. For you to see the whole destruction that took place in that place, this is one of the original cables of bomb that was invented by Turing. And then we have a memory or tribute to the Polish cryptographers, who were the ones who broke down the Enigma machine back at that time. So Enigma was not taken down by Turing, but by the Polish cryptographers. As we can see in Imitation Game, the American movie, Turing did not physically assemble the machine. He asked the company to do that for that. Turing did the design. And came a time that was not enough, because the Germans did not use Enigma but other encrypting machines. One of them was known as Laurent, that was for the high command of the Nazi army. And because that was not enough in Bristol, they created the largest computer in the world. That was Colossus. It has like 2,500 vacuum pipes. The good thing about Bristol is that it was such a top secret that it was not up until the 90s where it was found out what happened at that Victorian property. Nowadays, it is one of the best places in the world to fully enjoy all that, and also to acknowledge the work done by 8,000 women carrying out different type of jobs, administrative tasks, you name it. So you see here all the bombs that were done, some 10 of them. And in the beginning, they used to run and to go to London to take the messages over there. I highly recommend you to visit Bletchley Park. It is a wonderful festival. It's a wonderful place to enjoy that time. You walk through the barracks and then you hear how people used to type. You could hear the conversation they had. You can also sit down and type in the Enigma machines that they used. So they did that with the help of very many Spanish people who risked their life. And this has not been written. So his name was Joan Pujol. He was known as Garbo by the British. Germans called him Alaric Arabel. So this man has a full wall devoted to him in Bletchley Park. You know what he did? He also changed the destiny of the Second World War. He was a double agent. Actually, he has the he got the cross of the Empire, British Empire, and he convinced Hitler for the disembarkment in Calais instead of Normandy. He created a false network of spies made up of 22 spies that did not exist. It was so believable that the Germans believed that they had an army of spies deployed. Well, that was not true at all. And he was so good that at the end of the Second World War, he simulated his death in Angola, and he was not found. He was found 20 years later in South America, where he lived for 20 years in South America, and then he came back to Barcelona to meet his friends and family. 22 spies, and he was getting lots of money to create that network, and he also made lots of money. And he was not the only Spanish person there. There were also Spanish cryptographers. This started off with some result of some research carried out by some Spanish people. He devoted his life to studying the identity of Spanish people who helped in PC Cadix to bring Enigma together with the Polish. Bertrand, a French general, wrote his memories, and he said that there was a Spanish person, his name was Camazon. He had been helping breaking or taking down Enigma together with the Polish cryptographers. He was not Camazon, but Camazon. And this photograph is very famous. He's there with the Polish cryptographers. No one knew who Camazon was. And he was Spanish person, Republican. He had a PC Bruno, and when Nazis invaded France, they had to go down south. They went to the south of France and they created PC Cadix. So he had an advanced post of smart signal, and then, well, the name given to that was PC Cadix. So it was found out that there were 7 Spaniards who helped the Polish cryptographers and Turing break down Enigma. They were taken to Uzes, and then in Uzes there is a small machine on the countryside, and at that time had the facilities for PC Cadix. That's where these Spaniards did the crypto analysis to take down Enigma. So there is a film known as the Open Source. This is a Spanish TV production. It is about the history, the life of these people. because of the civil war in Spain and other circumstances, these people went into oblivion. So that movie will be on for only for a year, for 1 month. And then the name of it is The Forgotten Codes. So we can only see a bit about the future, but enough to find out that there is a lot yet to be done. That has been mentioned, that was said by Alan Turing 70 years ago. He had a lot to say, he had a lot to do. For those of you who feel that cryptography is very difficult, so the Science Museum in London, which is one of the top 3 most visited museums in London, has devoted an exhibition about cryptography. So they had to extend this exhibition twice. Top secret information. The British Intelligence Agency has exhibited the best encryption machines they have never exhibited before, and SG41 in the exhibition says that it is one of the few German encryption machines that were not taken down from Ridley Park. We see this encryption machine that has been best sold in the history. It was even used in the 50s. And from London, David said to me, well, this is very good, but because of Brexit, let us move on somewhere else. And he took me to a very strange place. And he said, okay, now would like to play this for you. This is such a strange track. This is UVB76. So this is those. Well, in the beginning there was an legend saying that it was a relay of a dead man, but by the time that track did not stop, the world will be destroyed. There is a lot of controversy about this strange signal that everyone says that it is a big mystery. It is not such a big mystery. Technically speaking, we refer to it as channel Meca. It is a Meca that has been there for 40 years, telling you that you should not be there because it is part of the West District for the army in Russia, and this is used for strategic communication. Now it is closer to St. Petersburg. This is the abandoned building of Povarovo. Many urban explorers went there to visit it, cannot be visited. Well, as I say, people went there, the only thing they could find was the facilities for that buzzer. This is a backup system for army hub transmitting monolithic messages. So when the buzzer stops operating, a number of encrypted messages are transmitted. It has nothing to do with agents. The phonetic code from Russia, contrary to that used by NATO, Alpha Bravo, they use it other people's names, okay? That's one and only mystery. The buzzer has been there, has been in operation for 40 years now. And then I said to David, okay, let us go to a better fun place, and we went to Formidi. That's where we have the NSA in the US.
In Maryland, this is a military facility, and you can't go into the NSA. Well, the NSA since 1993 has one of the best cryptography museums in the world. That was created to show to the people in Maryland and the surroundings what they did and why cybersecurity was so important and encryption too. So they made the crypto museum that receives more than 80,000 people a year and has some of the most spectacular machines that the US has used throughout history for encryption. There's a Hall of Fame devoted to Enigma, and this big machine that is here is really it's really weird. This is an American bomb. I told you that Turing did the bomb in Wesley Park, and after doing so, and of course, well, the Americans knew that they were able to transcript the American messages and to decode them in real time. They were chasing them to get the drawings and to get the technology that they had at the British bomb. In 1942-43, they gave them the drawings, and a company did the American bomb. They destroyed all of them except one of them, and you can see that showcase. It's much bigger and maybe much more complex. The value that it has is that it's the only real one that is left in the world. And it's like, well, I like this, but David said, well, we're going to travel from the computer, and we started to visit a virtual museum that was called Crypto Museum. I think it's the best virtual museum of encoding and spying machines that exists. In fact, they've collaborated with me sometimes. Espol from this website has collaborated with me when we've bought something that nobody understands, and they've helped me because they have all types of parts. They are looking for parts that they haven't found yet, but if you log in the website, you'll find any type of all types of devices in terms of encryption with very good pictures, and if you need them for any type of work, they will give them to you without any type of problem. They do exhibitions. This is private. The machines are in some kind of garage, so to speak, and sometimes they do or they celebrate some specific exhibitions, and well, you can't visit them unless they let you visit it. But well, we were at Maryland and we went to other place. We went to Langley. What do you have in Langley? The CIA headquarters, and well, the headquarters has a museum too, because during the 70s, one of the managers said, well, people need to know what we're doing to help them. So let's pick all the objects from the most emblematic secret operations and let's show them at a museum. So Langley has one of the best spying museums that you can see in the world. Everything's full of weird things. There's a picture of pigeon with a camera system, and they were able to miniaturize it so much that when the pigeon was flying, it was able to take photos, and it was some kind of biodrone. Here, well, this is the access to the museum. This is the haggling. This would be the Enigma that was used by the US, the B209, and it has quite a spectacular history. It was created by a person that lived close to Russia, Haggling, yeah. Because of the Russian Revolution, he had to escape. He escaped through Italy when things were a little bit difficult, and he went to the US, and there was a guy called Frisman who created the NSA, and when he knew that he was able to make this machine, he authorized its manufacturing. It's in the US, and they bought around 140,000. This is the US Enigma. It has a longer history because there has been a report about a neutral Swiss company that's called Crypto AG. I'm sure that you've seen it. That was selling some tricked machines. Haggling is the origin of Crypto AG. And I don't know if you've seen so, but at the virtual crypto museum part, one of the showcases, well, there was an operation of RootedCON operation. The people of from Crypto Museum published many years ago that during the 80s, and in fact it appeared on the newspapers, they arrested some people from Crypto AG, especially a sales manager in Iran, because they realized that they were selling some fake merchandising, so to speak. These were devices that were, for example, in the pipelines to spy people. They developed micro batteries, and these things have been used. Do you know what they were used for? The batteries that pacemakers have right now have the origin in CIA, and well, we love this. We need to go fast because we could be here for 80 days, but we have 20 minutes left. So this is called Cryptos. It's at the access of the CIA headquarters. there are some letters. Maybe you don't pay attention to that, but it is one of the most famous cryptograms in the world. One of the most wanted cryptograms. It was done by an architect called Saber in 1990. And it was the CIA entry point. He put a cryptogram there, and there are 4 panels. And he said, let's see who can figure this out. So NSA was delighted. It was like, well, if somebody comes along to see the CIA and is able to decode it, we will hire this person. But the point is that nobody expected that this artist could do this in such a very good way, that today, 30 years after, nobody has been able to decode it. As you can see, there are 4 cryptograms. The first one, we know that in the end there's a sentence that says, between the subtle shade and the absence of light, we can find the nuance of illusion. And the second one, we have the coordinates, the location coordinates of CIA. And the third one, Luis will like this because he likes Egypt. We find the words by Howard Carter when he got into Tutankhamun's tomb. And the fourth one, nobody has been able to decode it, up to the extent that Sabmar has said that before dying, well, he's more than 80, he would like somebody to decode it. He is thinking about going into an auction, and he's so upset to being written, so he has created something similar to publish my inbox. So you have to pay $50 for him to answer the mail. So it has not been decoded yet. So if anybody at Rooted decodes it, you can be history. So David took me to Kaunas, to Lithuania, and it's not the only KGB museum. This is quite curious because it is in a real nuclear bunker, and it has many thingies, many radios, spying systems, tapping systems, EMR Russian systems that are quite weird, etc. And here we have a Russian enigma, Sialka, for example. This, cryptographically speaking, is even more advanced than Enigma. So there are gas masks, I mean, everything that you usually have at a nuclear bunker. So it's a good place not to be found. And after that, he took me to Berlin, and we have the Stasi Museum. It's located at the Ministry for the State Security, and you can find the office of Erich Mielke. He was the Minister of State Security. This would be an equivalent to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And of course, he was the top manager of Stasi. It was one of the intelligence service that had one of the most important penetration in the civil society. Almost everybody you knew, even your relatives, could be snitches of either for devotion or for obligation. So there's a movie that's called La Vida de los Otros, where the protagonist is one of the is a member of the Stasi that has to monitor some political dissidents, and well, this guy died very young. He was a very good actor, and in real life, he was the chased one. And the point is that the person who was chasing him was his wife. His wife sent all the reports to the Stasi, and in fact, this is attached to the. I mean, in the movie, you can see how this person. Well, there's a very big trolley full of reports. Imagine that you see a very big trolley full of folders, and you can access them, and this is privileged information like illegal registers and illegal friskings, etc. So we moved to the US again, and as we had many bitcoins, we were flying constantly, and we went to one of the coolest museums that we've seen. It receives more visits than Louvre and Prado together. So it is the Air and Space Museum at Washington, together with the NASA Museum. It has all the things that you could think of the spatial career. So it's amazing. And there's a lot of technology. We have the Spirit of St. Louis is the first plane that went through the Atlantic. Many things that we've seen in books of history, well, we can find them here. It's an amazing place. And we liked something a lot. Tomorrow it's the 8th of March. And we liked a lot the history about how the NASA has given voice to everybody that worked there and that couldn't sign the works they did. Katherine Johnson, Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan, I'm sure that you know them because of this great movie. Katherine Johnson maybe is the best known because she said when the Apollo 11 had to take off from the moon in order to come back, she was a person without which the man would never have gone to the moon. And the other two ladies made history because they were the HR manager and the first NASA engineer, female engineer. So I think that this has to be acknowledged. And from there we moved to Silicon Valley. So the Silicon Valley industry started there. We had a very good time at Silicon Valley. We have had two correspondents, Jose and Marcos, that have been there sniffing around. And we started in a garage. In a garage, yes. There were two people there. It was Bill Hewlett, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, and they started during the 30s to develop a device that was a precision audio oscillator. So this is what they did in that garage. Today, the company they created is called HP, and that oscillator, you could say, well, what can we do with this? So they had a first customer that many companies would like to have. Walt Disney bought it to make the sound of a fantasy movie. So the HP garage is like the kilometer zero of Silicon Valley, and you can find that garage there. And we have the black pudding route, or the blood sausage route in Burgos. I'm from Burgos, and you can see the garage of, for example, of Apple. For example, Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, when he bought a house there, he wanted to have a garage there to have the Amazon garage. So if you ever go to Silicon Valley and you buy a house, that's very important. You need to have a garage there. So at Silicon Valley, we have another museum that has been called Hackerland, the Computer History Museum. It's one of the biggest museums, computing museums in the world. And you can find from the first modern supercomputer from the 50s, you have logarithm books of 17th century, 2,000 years of language, computing language. You have the first IBMs. It was International Business Machine. It was created at the end of the 19th century, so it wasn't born with a computing technology. This is for drilled cards, and that's the Cray 1. It's the first supercomputer ever. So we have the first Google servers. We have mythical computers like Apple II. That was the first Apple that was really massively manufactured, because the first one was handcraftedly made. Many things that are part of the history, and I recommend it to read on a book that is called Microhistory, Anecdotes and Curiosities of Computing Science of Martinez and Troncoso, that are here, and everybody should enjoy this book. It has been published by 0x World, and the truth is that this is one of the books that let you know where technology lovers come from. One of the best works that you can buy and you can enjoy. I've read it twice or 3 times. So from here we moved to, David told me, well, we are in the US constantly, so let's move to Europe. And in Europe, at a place called Paderborn, that is 130 kilometers away from Colony, we have the biggest computing museum in the world. This was created by the founder of a computing brand that is called Lindstorf. It was very well known. It was one of the competition brands with IBM. And as you can see, the museum has more than 5,000 objects, and it has 5,000 years. from the first demonstration, from the first writings to AI. There are all types of computers. And this one is Z11. This is a later model to Z3, a guy that was called Zeus, that is one of the computer science fathers. But unluckily, his computers were destroyed during bombings at the Second World War. Otherwise, it would have been direct competition of ENIAC. That is the most known one. They have a Hall of Fame, and from here we move to another weird museum, right? Yeah, this was interesting for you, right? This is a museum that is in Japan, and it's devoted to new technologies and AI. It's called Mirai-kan, and it's devoted to emerging technologies. This, you can see, is a world that has 8 meters of diameter and 10 million megapixels of resolution. And here you can see how the world would be in 2050. Of course, it's shown by Asimo Robot, and you have temporary exhibitions, as we've seen with Josep Albors, who is here with us today, and he likes this museum a lot. And they do some weird things sometimes, temporary exhibitions. Look at this. It's an exhibition about recycling, so they are dressed as a poop, and well, this hat is a little bit weird, right? No, there's a slide to get into there. So, as Santa gift, I don't know if it would work. So David told me, no, I don't want to be dressed as a poop. So let's go to Moscow and see Bunker 42. It's a bunker that was created in the Cold War that could host around 3,000 people during a month in an autonomous way, and it has many interesting things. Some of them, well, for example, they have this surveillance units of the airspace, and from there we are at launching position to launch the missiles, and they have interesting radio equipments. For you to have an idea, there's around 18 floors, and you need to go by the stairs. If you have any mobility problem, you need to go for 18 floors below the subway of Moscow. There was a door, and they got into this humongous bunker. It was a super bunker. There are offices, there are communication devices, and when the communication devices, when we were seeing them, I asked him what was that, and suddenly the buffer signal got in. It was something magical. I asked him, "Hey, what's this?" And he said, "Well, don't know." There's a restaurant too. This is an amazing restaurant. At the bottom floor, you can have a drink. There's just vodka. No, I want to choose no vodka. So we're Russian. So from here we went to quite a weird place. You know that the vid is an expert in many topics, and it's a little bit divergent. I don't know if you watched this movie. So I was playing music, the Eagles, Elton John, and he played this. And I told him, "You're a little bit divergent, right? Like the movie. Do you know this? Has anybody watched the movie?" These are some islands that surround the city where the action takes place. I didn't know that. Jose Manuel told me, because I hadn't watched this movie. And if you have a look at the poster, you can see a reproduction of what we call the Duga 1. The Duga 1 was a facility that was part of an OTH network of radars over the horizon. So what is this antenna for? Well, these antennas are there to receive information from a transmitter that is 50 or 60 kilometers away in a straight line. It's more or less at Chernobyl, and it rebounded at the ionosphere, and through some computers that we'll see in a minute in a slide, they picked up all the signals, and they analyzed whether there was any intercontinental missile launching, if the US was attacking them, basically. So it works on the ionosphere changes, because until then the radars only let you see the missile when it was late. This way you were able to see all the ionosphere, to see far away missiles. This interference was very interesting when I was a kid. A little bit before the Soviet Union fell, it was called differently at the NATO, but it was a secret facility. This is not something old, of course. It has been, it has been left aside, but we sent a reporter there, Javier Conde from NHS, who was visiting Duga, and he took some pictures, and there you can see how it is now. You can't touch anything because possibly it would be polluted with radioactivity, but this has not been, there's an OTH in Russia that's called container that makes a similar noise. Australia has an OTH. It's a very modern technology. It's not old-fashioned. It's the only way to detect these missiles. There's a documentary that won some awards, and there's a conspiracy theory about this facility. It's been said that this facility costed double money than Chernobyl. It is possible. And the conspiracy theory says that it costed double digits than the power plant in Chernobyl. And the engineer that made this antenna, well, he was a little bit corrupted. And the conspiracy is that they say that this person was the one who caused the accident not to go to jail or not to be sentenced to death, because that could be the case there. So apart from all these theories, the installation is brutal. There are people that go up with their antennas to talk to other people. After they get home, they take the light bulbs and they turn on. Yeah, well, we were seeing many things, and we said, well, let's go to Spain. We know that we are running out of time, but, well, Spain's different, right? So there was a spaceship, and Luis said, well, what map do you have? So, I have an 800 years map. And we traced the path of hacker sanctuaries in Spain. And we started by one that is at Belorado, at Burgos. I don't know if you know it, but it's an amazing place, huh? Yeah, I knew this museum because I delivered a speech about a communication intelligence at the Balkan War, and we were with the mayor, with the former mayor of Belorado, who is the founder of this museum, and they were showing the museum at radio level. Inocencio Belorado, well, it's a person that has more than 300 devices. He has reproductions of devices that were used during the Second World War. Amazing devices, astronaut suits. There's a trench of the First World War with its tent, etc., like the one of 1917. It's a reproduction that, in fact, the Spanish army collaborated when setting it. There's a pattern that can be visited. Is one of the few tanks that you can see publicly. There's a helicopter, the Checkpoint Charlie. For the millennials, the Checkpoint Charlie during the Cold War, well, it is where they sent everything through the RDA and RFA. People that went through West and East Germany. The mayor was with us, and he told us very interesting things about the museum. It's a museum that everybody should know. It's amazing. And we have 5 minutes left, so we're going to go a little bit faster. After that, we started to chase enigmas, and we found the Army Museum in Toledo and in Seville, and with the Enigma machines that were sold from Hitler to Franco between 20 and 30. It was an Enigma machine that was called OK, and it was a commercial model because they didn't trust on selling the military model. It was the most advanced commercial model. So these machines have been at forgotten places for a very long time. Maybe some of them have been thrown away because maybe they were mistaken for typewriter. And it's funny that Hitler didn't trust the others. The Enigma machine that Presley worked with was taken through an operation at a submarine. And as we were chasing enigmas, he took me to a very to an amazing place that is in El Pardo. We have the transmission means museum, where through the task by Commander Pesquero, they brought together some pieces that would have been lost if it wouldn't have been for this person, and there are amazing pieces. There is a commercial enigma of 4 rotors. There are some spy suitcases that were used during the Civil War, and in some cases it's not very clear what they were used for. And there's something curious. Here you can see on the left, it's some kind of emitter. This transceptor has a curious story. This transceptor was the one that was sized when the Perejil Island was taken in 2002. This is war loot. This is the well, as this was war loot. Well, it's just exhibited there. And this TV, transparent TV that you have here, belongs to the royal house. Why is it transparent? Well, it's said that it's transparent to avoid somebody from putting something in the TV, and it's quite an advanced prototype, both at aesthetical and functional level. Has anybody seen a mesh acrylate flat TV? Well, we haven't, right? There are many interesting things, and it goes from the pigeons. By the way, the pigeon unit of the Spanish army ended up with its service in 2008. So, well, you understand what we mean. It said it, yeah, but they killed all the pigeons. No, this is what I mean. Well, maybe with the coronavirus, maybe we should use them again. So we are about to finish, and we need to speak about one of the most important hackers in Spain. It's amazing that this person is not studied in all history books in Spain. That we know who Tesla was, but we don't know who Leonardo Torres Quevedo was. Do you know him? When I tell you what he invented, you will be surprised. At the second floor, at the second basement of one of the engineering faculties, we have the Torres Quevedo Museum. It's a room with a very good will. Has all the machines of this engineering from the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. What did it do? This is called telequino. It has been recognized by everybody as the first remote control by radio frequency. This is the first remote control by radio frequency in history. Leonardo Torres Quevedo. He is his inventor. And he invented this, and we all think of TV, right? No, he invented it to move flying devices. He was a great expert there, and he is one of the fathers of drones. So with telequino, he was moving some boats, and Alfonso XIII, the king, he was able to move a boat remotely in 1906. So imagine, I mean, he created a sea drone, but not only that, he invented the chess player. There was a version in 1912, another one in 1920. In 1946-48, one of the great mathematicians in the world, on a book called Cybernetics, he said, "We are ready to make machines that are able to play chess against people." You know what? This person didn't know that 40 years before, in Spain, there was a guy that was called Torres Quevedo, who created a machine that was able to play chess against people. The chess player. There were 2 versions, 1912 and 1920, as I've just said. As you can see, it's a very easy move. It's a checkmate where they start with the king in black pieces, and there's a gramophone that says checkmate when the game is over. There's a very weird story, and when Torres Quevedo died, New York Times said, well, that he had died. He did something about chess player, and it was not very important. In fact, he didn't have much credit. 20 years later, the same newspaper published a piece of news that said Spanish person brings to Paris a machine that is able to play chess. It was his son with a machine that his father invented 40 years before. So what else did Torres Quevedo do? He was one of the fathers of calculation devices. So this is from 1910. It's a machine that, as you write, you put an algorithm, and you can find it printed. In fact, he created a machine that was able to solve 8th grade equations. He's considered the inventor of the laser pointer. It worked with a lack of light, not with laser, but well, you can see this at the at one of the at civil engineering faculty, and he should be at another building as he deserves, but with due respect, he's at the second basement of the civil engineering faculty. So Torres Quevedo, he was one of the most important hackers. From there, we want to see another museum that we loved, the Videojuego Arcade Vintage Museum. Giuseppe, you were traveling at 79 kilometers an hour. So there are 100 arcade machines, and you can play with them. So we went to several museums where you can see some Turing awards that were created in 1966 for the computing science pioneers, and today Google has a $1 million award. And we went to Catalonia, and we have Telesynchro. Has anybody heard about Telesynchro? The S factor, the T factor. These are the first computers that were manufactured in Spain at the end of the 70s. And after some sales by companies, even Fujitsu, they were forgotten. But Spain could have been a powerful country in terms of computing. You can see some other things at Terrassa, for example, and we came back to Spain at a museum that I recommend you to visit. At the Complutense University, the computing science faculty, it's called García Sánchez Mases. Who's García Sánchez Mases? García Sánchez Mases is the one who brought computer science to Spain during the 50s. In fact, he was the one who created the first analyzer, the first electronic analyzer. It's an amazing machine that's and well, you can see the electronic brain here, and there's a spectacular collection of Spanish video games. There's an 8 gigabytes of hard disk. It weighs 800 kilos, by the way. Okay, so instead of millstone, you can see hard disk, and David likes that a lot. And he said, we said we don't have money to go to NASA, so we went to Fresnedilla and Robledo de Chabela in Madrid, and these are 2 NASA museums, because you know that Spain is one of the 3 places in the world where we are getting signals. In fact, the Apollo 11 mission and the Apollo 8 mission that took a picture from space, the signals arrived here to Fresnedillas and Robledo de Chabela. And there are 2 amazing NASA museums, apart from the antennas, that are used for deep space. And well, David, tomorrow is the Women's Day, and we will end up with other inventor, Angela Robles. We went to a place that we love, that is Galicia. We eat very good there, to the Museum of Technology of La Coruña. And here you could say, well, what's this? This is the inventor of the tablet. From the year 40 to the 40 to, from 1940 to 1970, this lady made a book that could be a summary of all the books that the children had, so that they didn't have so much weight to go to school, because now we have the same problem, right? So from 1940 to 1970, she patented the e-book and electronic encyclopedia. She wanted to do it in plastic so that it was lighter, but she only created the prototype, as you can see there. So they were reels, and you could see a book or an electronic encyclopedia, and she's considered as the pioneer of the e-book. And well, of course, we end our journey at the best Congress, at the best Hackers Congress. And well, we send an SOS. You like technology, like cybersecurity. Yeah, I'm collaborating with the historic form of telecommunications and and telephony, we are trying to make stock of everything that has to do with telecommunications history. Everything, antennas, or old, pits, old caskets. We are creating stocks so that, let's see if this can be covered by the industrial heritage law, and so that everything that we've seen during the speech, instead of losing it, we hope to see it at some place. If you want to help, you have this email address that you can see on the screen. If you have any question, if you have anything, you can send it. And we have been using many materials, and they really deserve to be remembered. So we want to preserve a heritage that, if we do not preserve it, it would not exist. So here there are many places where we have had a great time. We have traveled a lot during this year. We haven't done anything. Yeah, we have gained some weight. The next year we have one goal: the George Lucas Star Wars Museum. I would like to dress up as a poop, so that's fine. So may the force be with you. May the poop be with you. So the world is a book, and those who don't travel just read one page. Thank you very much to everybody. We would like to say thank you to everybody that came along with us. Well, every people that you can see on the screen. Everybody. And of course, I would like to say thank you to the team that is working there. Thank you for helping us. Thanks for supporting us. And that's it. The Hacktiago way. Next year we'll tell you where we've been. Thank you. So just one question.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I very much liked it. Why is it so difficult in Spain to organize meetings about cryptography machines? Why is it so difficult to bring private exhibitions? Well, I just don't know. Perhaps I could tell you what could have been done and has not been done. It is technically viable to collaborate with those who own the parts, but we need more collaboration from public institutions, public administrations. That's what I feel is needed. For those of you who like the Hacktiago path, there is a playlist in Spotify known as the Hacktiago Way, RootedCON, with the best soundtracks from the Lord of Rings, Imitation Game, Games of Thrones, Jurassic Park. I hope that you enjoy it. And I also added Viaje con nosotros from Curiosidades. So I hope that you like it. So I would like to mention or add to that. In Spain, we are highly destructive with our big people. I'd like to share with you a Paris anecdote. I went to visit Victor Hugo's home, and the ticket was 10 euros. And then Cervantes' home, someone wanted to destroy it, and Mesonero Romano chained himself at the door so that would not happen. So if we don't feel proud to defend our heritage, the British people would not do that for us. So sometimes that destructive nature against our equity and heritage is really damaging. This is not about ideology at all, so please bear that in mind. So we have stolen some time from Jose Luis, okay? There will be no... Okay, so Jose Luis, you have the floor. I'm sure you know Jose Luis.